regular session. Any meeting materials received by the deadline were posted online earlier this week and made available for downloading. This afternoon, we are going to hear from representatives of the Administrative Office of the Courts and County Jails who are here to provide an update regarding virtual hearing technology projects in Kentucky courts and jails. $14.7 million was appropriated to the AOC in the prior budget for these efforts. An additional $15 million was provided in the current budget to support county jails directly with costs associated with implementing video arraignment technology. If we could have roll call.
Representative Brown, Representative Decker, Representative Kulkarni, Representative Sharp,
Present.
Representative Petrie, Representative Reed, Representative Elliott, Chair Flannery.
Present. I believe we need to have a quorum and we need to approve the minutes from the February 14th meeting. Motion, have a second?
Second.
Meeting minutes are approved. All right, if we can have the presenters come up to the table. We have Laurie Givens, looks like Elizabeth Lucas, and Jim Daly, Campbell County Jailer.
Chairman Flannery, welcome and congratulations, and we appreciate and are excited about the fact that you're going to be chairing our Budget Review Subcommittee for Justice and Judiciary going forward. To my left is Beth Lucas. She's our Director of Implementation and Technology Services, and then to my right is Jim Daly, the Campbell County Jailer, and want to take a minute to thank Jim, the Jailers Association, and the folks that are here today. They've been incredible partners with us on this. I also want to make sure to thank specifically this committee and your colleagues in the House and Senate for what is the largest technology investment this General Assembly has ever made in Kentucky's court system in our history. It's significant. We're excited about the progress we're making, and we're excited to update you not only about the video arraignment and video conferencing projects today, but also 4 other projects that you have funded for us, some of it through federal ARPA funds, some of it through other sources, but it's significant. And I really have to thank Beth and her team and Scott Mattingly, our Chief Technology Officer. I know they presented on this last fall. I'm excited because we've made even additional progress since the last presentation. Beth, thank you. And you mentioned in your remarks, Mr. Chairman, that you've appropriated $10.6 million specifically for the video arraignment and video conferencing project. We have consolidated this project because they are so closely related. Originally, as appropriated, they were separate projects. You'll see that we have only expended $720,000 roughly to date, but that's because we've been piloting in 3 different counties with 3 different jails to make sure that we had the equipment configuration the way we needed it to be. We currently have another $2.3 million obligated, but this is really only initially for the first few courtrooms that we're doing. I want to assure this committee we still have 432 courtrooms that will be equipped total in this project. So we're anticipating expending all of these funds definitely by the end of 2025, hopefully sooner by the time we're completely finished. But the project includes a number of different costs, and you'll see these listed here. We have the hardware costs, which are the Zoom Room and the HDX new JAV system, which is our video system, our video recording system that we've used for years in courtrooms, but this is the newest system that JAVS has created, really specifically in some ways for our court system and specifically for this project following the pandemic. The needs of all courts across the country shifted. There are a number of licenses involved in this project. We've got Zoom Room licenses, our Cloud Room connectors. Those are the licenses for the jails that we are purchasing through our portion of the project. We have implementation costs, and then we have some infrastructure costs as well that are included. It's a multi-generational, multi-year project if we've kind of tried to set forth here. If you think about it, and I know, Mr. Chairman, as a practicing lawyer, you've had an opportunity to use some of this technology. And really, for the first time, you used what we were able to Band-Aid together during the pandemic, and that would have been what you see here as the second generation remote court. This was really just a laptop interface that our judges were using through the pandemic. And certainly while adequate for our needs and we were able to transition quickly to a video court, it is not long-term the solution that you have funded or that we'll be creating. The third generation hybrid court and the fourth generation, these two different projects will be everything that all courts in the state have. They will be one of these two solutions. By the way, don't let me go too fast if you want to ask a question. But the goal will be that every courtroom in the state has one of these two solutions. I spoke briefly that we hope to have this complete, all courtrooms installed by the end of 2025. But so you know, we're doing 3 JAVs, the HD solutions, a week. So we'll do those first, and we're going to the counties where we have the oldest systems first, and we'll be upgrading there. Our goal will be to get, Beth, I think, 8 to 10 courtrooms done a month approximately, if we can.
Correct.
So it really is just a function of how much we're able to do as quickly as we can. The cost differential, you'll see at the bottom in terms of what the cost is for the different solutions. The TAP device, the IP Lenovo device, that alone is almost $5,000, whereas you contrast that with the HDX, the full system, total cost is approximately $72,000. One of the things and one of the challenges, and I think we're excited about getting this technology to our judges, many of them have tested this, but the majority of our judges haven't seen this hardware yet. And I think one of the things that's been overwhelming for our judges, because every few months we've been changing out their hardware, testing a new solution. So suddenly they have benches full of hardware and technology that they don't know how to use, frankly, and it's been a little bit overwhelming. But as we've begun to identify clearly the systems that we're going to be putting in place, we're hopeful. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from our judges who have been testing this TAP IP system because it's easy, because they literally tap the device one time and they will be immediately connected to the jail. It's separate. They're not toggling from their laptop that they're on. It's a completely separate device, and the hope will be it's much easier to use. Judge Blau in Campbell County has been using the HDX device, if that's correct, Beth, with the Lenovo bundle, the TAP solution also, and we're hearing a lot of positive reviews, so we're excited. That is the solution that we'll be rolling out into the courtrooms, as I mentioned. And Beth, I know, Jim, we've got, I don't know if you want to speak to this slide about, we've tested and selected the jailers have a Cisco hardware device.
Yes,
I don't know if
ma'am.
you want to speak about that a little.
Thank you. The jailers have tested it. We've put it in several jails throughout the state. And I would drop back and just tell you that I appreciate having worked with Lori and AOC, because it was critically important to me. I have a couple of different counties that I hold for, and it's saved us and the various fiscal courts a tremendous amount of money just on not having to ship people and take them back and forth for court every day. In Campbell County, we've done online court for years and years, but this allows us to do it statewide, basically. So at the jailers we've tested, we looked at several different options, and we've pretty much settled on a Cisco hardware device. And we've tested it and worked with AOC, so we're now sure that they're compatible and they'll play well together, right? Which doesn't happen all the time in government. But our systems and our people are working well together to get that across the board. We've tested it in my county, Marion and Shelby. She mentioned Judge Blau. Judge Blau's the consummate geek, actually, and he loves all this stuff. So he was pretty influential. I absolutely understand. Not all jailers do, myself included. That's why I told her, don't ask me any technical questions, because I don't have a clue. But I know it's a cost-saving, money-saving venture for us. So again, we're in the process now where every full-service jails, and I'll put a caveat in there, maybe some other court systems where they have where they don't have a full-time jailer will have it in their court systems. I don't know the answer to that, but hopefully, if I'm holding for other jails, I'll be able to do court for them no matter where they're coming from is the ultimate goal. So we have, and it talks about the implementation schedule. We are going through the third-party vendor, which of course is Cisco, and then who I don't know the name of the company that they're dealing with. But we are in the process now where each jailer will have time to order however many units they feel they're going to need for their respective county. For instance, Campbell County, I would tell you we'll need at least 3. And probably, I told them if they don't want them, I'll take them all, because we do for pretrial, and we do things for, having a brain fart, probation and parole. So hopefully we'll be able to do those hearings as well. But we're really excited. We expect within the next year to 18 months to have all the full-service jails equipped and be able to roll it out with the court system.
I think if you're, I don't know if you're referring a little bit to the delay perhaps and how long it's. Well, and I would certainly defer to Beth or to Scott, but I think number one, just getting equipment to even test it has been a challenge. There have been shortages, across the country and the world, I think, as everybody knows. And the solutions have been changing so rapidly that as soon as we would have something to test, there would be a new and improved version of what we were testing. And Beth, you can probably elaborate.
And I think that there, is a sense of a change culture, right? So having any change at all is challenging, but I think that the technology is making jobs easier, not harder. So I think that change culture is happening. It just takes a little time.
I think our judges who have had an opportunity to use the new system, I think it's important to know that there's only a few of them who've had an opportunity to test this, are very positive about their continued use, perhaps even just beyond video arraignments. But I think making sure, as Jim mentioned, every one of our courtrooms will be compatible with every jail in the state will be the goal if the jail has installed that equipment. And I appreciate the fact that the Jailers Association is working closely with DLG to try to make this as easy as possible for our jails to make these purchases through the Department of Local Governments, where the money was appropriated under House Bill 1. And I would remind the committee also, I think that appropriation just occurred this last session also, and that was a very important piece of this partnership, were those dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a quick question. Thank you all for presenting this. I wanted to know about, I'm assuming that this system would be the basis for any transcripts and things like that that were used in the future. So my question has to do with language access, and it also has to do with assistive technologies or, folks with disabilities.
So audio and video have been the official court record in Kentucky for a number of years. So we actually were the first state in the country to no longer have court reporters to produce the actual written transcript. But our Office of Language Access, for example, alone, interpreted for more than 70 different languages last year. So we provide interpreters anytime there's a request for an interpreter in all of our court hearings. And interpreters will be available. I know that the jailers will usually let our clerks know when you need an interpreter, and we'll have one available. We also do sign language interpreting for all of our defendants and participants in our court proceedings as well. And Jim, I don't know if you want to talk practically about how that.
Well, the other thing, at least in Campbell County that we do, and I know there's some other jails have it as well, we have a Guardian system, and it looks like a handheld telephone. And it will actually, with a multitude of languages, take care of that right there for you. So our jailers, deputy jailers, can hold that out. The person that's with us will speak into it, and it will tell us then in English what they're saying. And that, we can use that in the courtroom as well, obviously.
No, that's okay. We also use transcription software. And turn around and look at Scott, because I know we've had some challenges with some of the licensing pieces on that. I was thinking about the solution, the SmartCat solution, Scott, if you're familiar with what I'm talking about. It may be more of a Office of Language Access department. Okay, so I'm going to stop looking at, yeah.
And that's for forms, not for
Right.
Right, so we also translate the forms as well, Representative Kulkarni. So we've got, I think, our 7 or 8 most commonly spoken languages. Our key forms and critical forms are translated as well, so, okay. And this is just a picture, Jim, if you want to speak to the equipment in your.
part of the challenge, as you can imagine, inside of jail is they don't get real gentle use a lot of the time. So the one on the left is a box that we're looking at, and we had in Campbell County to test, but it's a box that will provide secure access to the court system, even in your arraignments, or if you have other hearings where you have to have people that are not playing well with others. And then on the right, I guess, is the computer that goes inside of that. But we also have it that we can put on a roll-around unit, so we can take it from room to room inside the jail, as long as, and we do very well at Campbell, as long as we have access to the internet, it will play at different spots throughout the jail.
Well, and it may be a good time, as Beth noted, we did bring a handout that wasn't in your material in the PowerPoint. It's the one-pager, front and back, of really what the ultimate solution looks like in the courtrooms. And then we've shared some information, some fast facts about a certification program as we're trying to get more and more of our electronic records in the record from our orders on cases, trying to make it easier for our judicial support specialists to support the remote proceeding. I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for our judges. You're asking them to manage the courtroom, give the witnesses the appropriate attention and counsel the appropriate attention in the courtroom, and then also manage the technology. And I think we've realized that is really, we're not going to be successful if we're asking the judges to run the technology and manage the courtroom at the same time. So we're providing that additional support by training staff. And we wanted to talk briefly, you funded 3 more projects in the 2020 session as well, or you appropriated $2 million for us to create a self-represented litigant portal, and I think we get lots of questions about what that is. We have, in a partnership with the Access to Justice Commission, created the Fayette County Legal Self-Help Center, which really is a model for what we want to try to do statewide. We've served over 800 people in Fayette County, and you can see the number of projects that we're piloting. These are guided interview forms. It says they're divorce forms where you'll see divorce pilot. It should have said divorce forms pilot. But we're doing additional guided interviews for guardianship and conservatorship, small claims cases, motions to modify parenting time, and then petitions for domestic violence. We do have language options on all of these as well. Our estimated project completion here is in December 2023. And then we plan to expend the balance of the funds, as you'll see, in equipping public workstations and additional clerk's offices and courthouses across the state. I want to show you what it looks like on our website, because it isn't just available in Fayette County. We just have the staffed self-help clinic in Fayette County. But you see in the red box below all of the forms that are available that have guided interviews attached. And this is, we've developed a lot of that with this project. It's pretty easy to find on our website. You just click the red box at the top. It says Legal Self-Help, and then this is what's provided. We continue to build this out. This is by no means complete. I think we anticipate this becoming more robust as we're able to get more forms online and build more guided interviews for our self-represented litigants. This is what the page, the website page looks like when you go online to create your forms, but this is the guided interview. It walks you through every step of completion. And then next project you funded was a redaction project. And this is important for us as we move towards an electronic court record. Sensitive data in cases that may otherwise be a public record, whether it's, say, you imagine a divorce case that could have an account number in it, you could have a child's name in it, you could have sensitive information in it that needs to be redacted. The redaction burden is on the filer. It's always been a manual redaction burden, but the technology has advanced to the point that you can identify characters in a document that can be automatically redacted. We're still, even though we've expended all the funds appropriated to us, we've purchased the solution, we are still scoping out the requirements and the deliverables in terms of what this is going to look like, what case types will this be applied in. If you have a guardianship case that is a confidential case, a mental health case, a juvenile case, those are all confidential records. So we need to determine whether through the e-filing process does redaction happen immediately in all of those case types, or are we wasting resources to redact those records because they're confidential cases? So those are policy decisions that our Rules Committee will need to make on how redaction functions. And I think Representative Flannery, as you know, because the burden is on the filer, anything we can do to make your job easier as the filer with respect to redacting sensitive information in court records is helpful for the practitioners. And then the last project that you funded in the 2020 session was the self-service kiosk. So we frequently have litigants in court who can only pay fines and fees with cash. They may not have a debit card or a credit card to pay. This is to make it possible for individuals to make these payments anytime, after hours. They're able to access these kiosks. We will have 10 to 15 kiosks across the state. There are 26 kiosks currently in probation and parole officers, and then we will have a number of retail locations where constituents and litigants can make payments statewide on fines and fees cases. We are in the early stages of a pilot here, but we plan to be statewide in July of 2023 because we've successfully tested, and we'll be able to stand this up pretty quickly. Beth, I don't know if you want to just show folks what this kiosk looks like.
So these are all the retail options that are available to make that payment. They basically download a barcode and then take it to the retail location and can make a payment on their court fines. This is a picture also on the left of the kiosk. That's the one that's currently installed in Fayette County, but also in the 26 probation and parole offices statewide. So folks will also be able to make payments there should they choose to do so.
And then the last project we wanted to mention briefly, because I know I said at the beginning of my remarks, you've provided historic levels of funding to the court system for technology projects. And I think the biggest appropriation in our history we received in 2022, and that is for a new trial court case management system. And Phase 1 in 2013, House Bill 238 gave us the authority to bond $28.1 million to do a number of things, and we have stretched that money as far as we can stretch that. We have built an appellate case management system, CourtNet 2.0, our e-filing system, our on-base content management system, and we launched KY3, which was going to be the next generation of trial court case management. And I think what we have realized is, with respect to what the future looks like for all of us in court technology across the country, we have always been a build-it-yourself shop. We have built every software application that we have. We've purchased very few. We maintain over 260 different software applications. And as it gets harder and harder to recruit technology resources to come to work for state government, I think we've recognized that it is time for us to move to a vendor-based case management system for our trial courts. And this has been a decision that we did not make in a vacuum. We have pulled a number of our clerks and our judges together, and it's been a conversation over the last several months. We've done a number of demos. We're at the point in the project where we're going to do site visits and actually look at other states that do offer these vendor solutions. And I will just tell you that our clerks primarily and judges will determine the selection of this solution. But I'll just say that there are options out there that provide case management solution for our prosecutors and our public defenders. So we're making sure that we include them in the conversation as well, because it could be something that is a much more holistic solution for the whole state than just what the courts use as a case management system. And I know there may be some questions about this, but it is the biggest technology decision we have ever made as a court system in the last 40 years. It's a complete shift for us to make a purchase of this size, to say. And Beth, I don't know if there's anything you want to comment about. We're a proud technology department. I'll just say that we've been proud of all the applications that we've built. So this is a significant decision for us.
Do you know how many circuits are not utilizing any form of what I would call Zoom court? I mean, I know the circuit, it may depend on what type of proceeding is or what court, what the jurisdiction is. But I know there are some circuits, it appears to me, that are not using it for district court, circuit court, family court, and the hesitancy seems to be that they feel like it's bad for their local bar. I really don't see it that way, but how many, are you aware of any circuits that are just not utilizing this technology at all?
So when I talk to our judges, what they tell me is that all circuits are using it in some capacity. Some are using it much more than others. And it may be that some circuits are only limiting it in very limited circumstances, whether it's video arraignments or perhaps it's mental health cases where someone is committed. I hear more from our practitioners who aren't able to use it, and it seems to be it's a smaller handful of counties. I know that depending on the case types, I hear from some of our practitioners frequently, especially on maybe simple perhaps motions, whether it's a motion for a default judgment and something that may make more sense to be remote and they were not given an opportunity for it to be remote. We continue to encourage that. And that is something that I'm very careful as AOC that we try to stay in our lane. We're trying to give them the best technology we can. We're trying to train their staff to do these proceedings. And whether or not, the Civil Justice Commission that newly elected Justice Bizik will chair will take up some issues, I think, with respect to civil rules. I know that if we mandated these in any of our criminal cases, and I think that's one of the things we have to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. Are we talking about civil? Because most of the case types you just mentioned were civil. Or are we talking about criminal? And I think with respect to arraignments, we're pretty comfortable in that space. And I'm not sure that necessarily DPA would agree that they're as comfortable as we are in some hearings. I think anything evidentiary, there are some concerns about whether those proceedings should be remote. But you're talking more about civil. And I think we're seeing it used in both case types, some places more than others.
I would just say that I'm a big fan of Zoom Court. I can remember I would like to recognize my 2 pages. I have my daughter, Demi, in the back, and Delaney serving as pages today. But I can remember when Zoom Court started, my daughter would chuckle because I'd have 9 o'clock Zoom Court, and I would kind of do the newscaster thing where I would have shorts on, and then I'd just find a shirt and tie to put on, and it was a convenience factor, still is a convenience factor, but I think it's a lot more than that. What I've found is that it's very good often for the litigants in civil cases where they want to be involved and know what's going on in court, but often it's just routine motions. And you try to tell them, here's what's going to happen in court today, and they want to be there.
Yes.
And it saves them from missing work. You have less traffic going in and out of the justice centers, which I think is good for safety. You have less of a likelihood of something happening. When you limit the foot traffic, and I think often you see the same good results. You don't have attorneys trying to make it from one county to another just to cover routine motions. I feel like we've come a long way. We just got to find a way to make it better and make it work for all participants, civil and criminal cases, the DPA. But what is the pushback? I mean, primarily that you all get as to why they don't want to go all in on the usage of this appropriated technology.
My observation, and I would love for Beth to speak to this, or Jim, or Scott, but I'm hearing from also my colleagues across the country who are having some of the same challenges, because when we were in the pandemic, everybody was pretty much remote. Everybody was on Zoom, and it was relatively easy to record. The judge was able to use their laptop. But we've moved into a world now, so it was either all in person or all remote. But we're in this world now, and this was the handout, the hybrid courtroom, where some people are in person and some people are remote. So it's a lot harder to capture all the microphones, to capture everything saying. It's harder to create the record. Some people are appearing on Zoom. Some people are in front of the judge. And that's one of the things we were hoping to show here, how long it took us to come up with a courtroom configuration and a hardware configuration that would appropriately capture the record, that would make it possible for the Zoom participant to see everything else in the courtroom that the folks in the courtroom could see. And I think about it, you think, and I've attended meetings at LRC where some folks are in the room and some folks are remote. And it's hard because you may have the monitor at the end of the table. You can only see some of the people in the room. There's one microphone that's hard for everybody else to hear. And then we've got to record all that because that's the record of the proceeding. That's been the challenge, and it's been hard for our judges to manage. And the hope is when we get everybody to this configuration, this solution in their courtroom, will be that it's not only easier to use, but we have a better record also of the proceeding. We're hoping that we will incentivize more use with that. And Beth, if there's Any,
No, and I think that what Lori mentioned earlier, you know, working with the staff to ensure they have a level of comfort is also important as they support the judge in the courtroom. So that's something that we, you know, have taken to heart and created an entire program around. So I think as we see the evolution of the technology continue to change, and it's an everyday change. And as soon as we get something out there, it's outdated, and so it's a constant change culture, and I think that's something that is difficult for everyone. But certainly we're trying to provide the best tools that we can and the best support we can to encourage the adoption of the technology and the way that the world is changing, especially in court.
and one of the things I have to think about it from the role of the judge. So, Chairman, if you were running the meeting today as the judge, and if you had to also run the Zoom court, and you had to allow the exhibits to come in, and you were trying to share screen, you know, you would be so consumed by trying to manage the technology that you couldn't manage the case. I don't know if that makes sense. So we're trying to provide the technology support so they can manage the case, because, you know, if it's a busy criminal docket, they may have 200 cases on the docket. So it isn't just like, say, one meeting that I'm struggling through to try to run on my end. They're trying to move over 200 different litigants through a remote court proceeding. Sometimes the civil motions are much smaller, or it's a scheduled hearing that can be scheduled remotely. So I think we've just got to get where the technology is easier to use, the judges are more comfortable with it, and we have staff who can provide that support. Having bumbled through a meeting and tried to manage documents in a meeting and also run the Zoom at the same time, I know I felt incredibly incompetent, and I know we don't want to set our judges up for that challenge on the bench.
Are the judges' staff assigned to do those tasks, or is that more of a circuit clerk's
So
responsible for those tasks?
the circuit clerks are not responsible for that, and I think that has been one of the important conversations that we had early. The clerks are the keeper of the record, not the creator of the record. They have some pretty important functions that they have to perform in the courtroom as bench clerks. So on the back side of this sheet, we created a program, a certification program for judicial support specialists. It's a voluntary program. Judicial staff can be trained. Judicial staff are entitled to a small temporary salary increase if they're certified to run this and do this. So we've tried to create incentives to make it easier for our judges to do that as well. We beat you down. We beat you down with a lot of information. I'm sorry.
I appreciate you all showing up today. Like I said, I've got a just kind of personally, I love Zoom Court, and I think it has a lot of opportunities. I think it's good for all persons involved and can be a big win for the taxpayers in finding ways to save money and transporting inmates and prisoners and getting trying to find ways to reconfigure the structure of our courtrooms and you know, have cost savings on construction and better utilize the square footage that we have existing. So I think it has a lot of promise, and I know this is all still kind of new and we're learning as we go, but I do appreciate you all bringing this update, and hopefully we can find ways to make it even better as we move forward. And if there are no further questions or comments, if you all have any comments, I'll give you the opportunity. If not, we'll adjourn.
I just want to thank you again for the funding. As I mentioned, we couldn't have done this without the General Assembly's support in appropriating these dollars.
All right, thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.